We're back here on the 80s at 8. Always one of my favorite times is when we can have a musical guest from the greatest decade in music, the 1980s. Today we have a special one. She was a Oscar-nominated singer, also up for an ACM award, also on the Walk of Fame in Nashville. The great Lane Brody. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you. That was lovely. That I enjoyed that very much. Thank you for that great introduction. Hi, everybody, and hi, Harry.
In Lane, in North Dakota, we kind of consider ourselves part of the Midwest. And I kind of reading
hmm
into you, you're kind of originally from the Midwest, correct?
I am. I was actually born in Oak Park, Illinois, and I was raised in Racine, Wisconsin. So yes, I am definitely a Midwestern girl. still,
Yeah, and
still love it there.
yeah. Did you enjoy your time growing up in Wisconsin?
Yeah, very much. My father was a real outdoorsman, and he brought me up like the same as my brother. There was like never any restrictions. What he taught my brother, he taught me. So I was always out with him and enjoying all the everything that Wisconsin had to offer.
Were you interested in music from a young age, Lane?
Oh yeah, I was actually on stage for the first time when I was 5. It was a party, and I went on stage and I started singing. I think it was Christmas carols or something, and had everybody join me. And and then it didn't stop from there. I just knew I always was going to be a singer, and that's what I did. And started very young, actually, in Chicago as a jingle singer. I don't know if a lot of people knew that, but it was a wonderful start. A
And
great way to be in the studio and work. hmm
what kind of music were you singing then when you started in Chicago?
Well, it's interesting. I can only be honest about my background. Management and people in the industry that guide us, they put us in certain directions. I was actually much more, singer-songwriter, the Carole Kings and the people like that. And I just never thought about any direction, being country or this or whatever. And when I was hired for jingles, I was mostly hired because they loved the quality of my voice and the way that I delivered and performed the product song, the jingle. And then management was the one that said, well, you really need to start in country. I'm trying to find a quiet spot, and I can't find a spot that's quiet inside or outside. I've got a lot of animals. I've got an airport close by. Hang on, let me move here. So I started with all those jingles, and then my management wanted me to do, demos that had a little bit more of a soulful flair to it. So it was sort of country pop, and then I sort of landed my deal with DRT Records, and that was my first recording contract. And I had a nice record out early on before I signed with EMI, and then I signed with EMI, and it was sort of like a battle between whether I was country or I was pop. It wasn't a lot of fun, to be honest with you, but through it all, I managed to have some success and some great songs that I'm grateful that I did and that people love. So
Oh,
pretty cool.
absolutely. And how did you eventually move to Nashville then, or how did that kind of come about?
Yes, I actually started in Chicago, and that's where I actually was a model in Chicago as well, and that was really to join Confidence. I have a cat that's following me around. Okay. So I started modeling and doing the jingles, and thought that was all going to be really helpful for my career because I could get confidence, and it was good for all of that. And then moved to LA, got my contract in LA. And then when it started to be time for touring, and then many of the critics were saying, she's country, she's more country than pop, because LA wanted me to do more pop things, go to England. Nashville wanted me to sing more country. It was a battleground. I moved here to try and become closer to the country community, and then touring. It's a lot easier from here than LA. So that's kind of why. And I met my husband here, Eddie Bears. So
That's it.
that's the best part of it all.
Yeah, and he's an
hmm
extremely well-known drummer, correct?
Yeah, Eddie actually just went into he's the first drummer ever to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Very, very wonderful man. And both of us, I just have to say to the listeners, for us, it's all about who we are, very, very strong in our faith, and we serve, we serve the Lord, and we make our choices and decisions in our lives based on that. And sometimes those can be decisions that we aren't always, I would say, honored for, sometimes penalized for, and so be it. But that's who we are. And a lot of that happened in my career.
Again, we are speaking with Lane Brody. So glad to have her on the 80s at 8.
Mm-hmm.
And Lane, we're going to dig into the music. And actually, the first song that we're going to play isn't a song sung by you, but I understand it's a song that you helped write, The Hottest Night of the Year by Anne Murray. Can you talk a little bit about writing that song?
Well, it was pitched to me, and I thought it was a good song. It was Kerry Chater, God rest his soul, and I think one other writer. And when I heard it, I thought, well, it's a good song, but there was something missing. So I said to Kerry, I said, you really need to go here with it. You make The Hottest Night of the Year a little bit hotter. It couldn't be no cooling down, da da da. And he said, oh wow, he really liked that. So he made the changes, and then they pitched it to Anne Murray. And then I found out that they put me on there as the third writer, which is the right thing to do. But a lot of times they don't do that. There's lots of bad stories about that kind of thing. So it was kind of nice that he did do that for me.
You bet. And what was it like to have a song that you did have a co-write on it by Anne Murray?
Yeah, it was very nice. Mm-hmm. Very nice. She was a label mate at the time.
Well, we're going to play that song, and then we're going to come back with 4 or 5 songs by you, and we'll be right back here on the 80s at 8. We are back here with Lane Brody on the 80s at 8, and we're going to kind of go through a little bit of her journey singing in the 80s. And the first song I want to play by you is a song called More Nights from the Tough Enough soundtrack that had Dennis Quaid and Pam Grier in it. And I really, really like the song. It's upbeat, it's fun. What do you remember about recording this song, Lane?
Well, it was a lot of fun. It was with Michael Lloyd, and it was at his studio in Beverly Hills. He had a wonderful, and still does, have a wonderful estate with a studio right on it, and we recorded it there. And one of the neat things, there's a little tone in there if you listen closely at one point, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but I had a 12-string guitar at the time, and one of the musicians wanted to use it because they liked the crispness of the sound of it, and it let out this little ting on one spot in the song, and they left it in. It's really cool. It does sort of like a high-pitched kind of tonal thing that's really neat. So every time I hear the song, I think of that, and that was that 12-string guitar of mine that I used to love to write on.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I love the sound of the song, and soundtracks kind of became something early part of your career, specifically that were kind of a big part of your career. They seem to be.
My manager was the music director for Warner Brothers Records, so he had an office right there, and asked us every now and then to pitch something for a project. And then also, I had done Taxi early on. I guest starred in Taxi, and many people were trying to get me into film. And I want to be lighthearted about this, but I'm not. My story is not a really good story. I fought a lot of the things that happened to women during those times, and I took a lot of hits for it. I would not do things for my fame and fortune that seemed to be required. So that's why people will say, well, what happened to Lane Brody? Why didn't it go on? I made really choices that I was, instead of held in good esteem for, penalized for. So I stayed out of the acting thing because of the stuff that was going on in that world. But the man there, Michael Zinberg, that had first hired me for Taxi, actually was the one that called me to sing the Yellow Rose, because he loved my voice, and he wanted me to be in the show. And so that's how that one happened. It was an association that happened early on in my career. So the Yellow Rose is a long story. That was my project that I asked Johnny Lee to be on. But that's kind of why I was out there in LA, and just things came my way, or I wrote some things and they landed, and some movies and stuff. And I did a lot of movie themes when I was in Chicago. Movies of the week, CBS Movies of the Week, Country Gold. The actress Linda Hamilton, my voice came out of her mouth. She lip synced. I always made jokes about the Grand Ole Opry because she came out on the Grand Ole Opry stage as the character in the movie, but it was really my voice coming out of her. So I said, everybody, my voice has already been on the Grand Ole Opry. That was years ago before I had ever done it. And then I did one called a song. The theme was just a little more love. It was about surrogate motherhood. That was a CBS movie of the week. So yeah, it was fun. And there was a writer, I think his name was Billy Goldenberg, that wrote those songs, and he was nominated for Emmys with me on all the ones that we did together. It was pretty nice. So it's a lot of fun.
You bet. And then in 1983, a great movie, but it didn't get the play it should have. But Tender Mercies, which is a fantastic movie about a country singer, you had a song I just love called "Over You" that hit 15. And talk a little bit about that song. You perform. I love your voice and then the passion you have. And talk about what it was like to sing that song.
Well, it was wonderful because I believe that was when I finally was trying to show them the direction that I wanted to go in as an artist. I love big ballads, have the voice for that, because they were putting me with producers that were doing songs that sounded like other country singers. And it really made the label angry in LA because they didn't feel that that's what they should be doing. So like I said, I was in the middle of a war. They kept cutting all these different sides on me and fighting over what was going to be released, and many of them weren't. And at that time, what happened was the movie came out, and Betty Buckley sang the song in the movie. She's an actress. And apparently she wanted money to do the soundtrack for the album. And they said there's no way they were going to pay her money for that. So they called me. I was a new young singer. And they said, we're going to, send a messenger over with this song over you and see if you like it, if you'll come and do it. And I thought it was fantastic. So I recorded that at, when you see Hollywood and you see the stacks for Capitol Records, it looks like records all stacked up. I recorded it in that building in Capitol, which is amazing, with the echo that the Beatles had when they recorded there in that original echo chambers where they actually used water to create the, how large the echo would be or how small. Is that cool? So it was an amazing experience. And yeah, that was one performance all the way through. And for those people that don't know, singers today, they punch every word if they want to, and they de-es them and vocal stress them, and they tune them up. And it's almost like you don't even have to be a singer anymore. But in those days, it was like performance was everything. And the fact that I nailed that performance all the way through with not one punch is something that just I'm grateful for that, because the energy's there. That's what I think you feel that people respond to. And the other thing about that song is it has lived on and lived on, because all over the world, I still get mail and comments. And in Brazil, it's like one of their most favorite songs ever. So it's really cool that turned into what it turned into. It wasn't huge at the time, but it's lasted the test of time, which is great. And for me as a vocalist.
Yeah, and I've got to ask on one take, that seems like it would be a difficult song to sing.
Yes, it's very difficult. And a lot of singers would write me and say that that's the song that they practiced to, or that they aspired to be able to sing. When I hit that high note on that song and sales, and, you put your heart into it. And for me, it's always been about performance of the song, honoring the song, and putting my heart and my spirit and my energy on it. I'm always intense about that, and still am. I'm still recording and putting things out on Spotify and Rhapsody and CD Baby, and the fans all over the world still find my music that way, which is really cool. And they love that about my singing, my performance, and my products, the records that we put out. So
and I think
yes, I am very passionate about it.
Yeah, and this song just puts that in display, in my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to play More Nights and Over You, and then we'll be right back and talk a little bit about the Yellow Rose here with Lane Brody on the 80s at 8. We're with Lane Brody, and those are two great songs by her. The first was from the Tough Enough soundtrack, More Nights, and then from the Tender Mercy soundtrack, Over You, which was nominated for an Oscar. And now let's jump to 1984. The song The Yellow Rose, and was this initially when this started, was this for the TV show The Yellow Rose, correct?
Yeah, correct. And and the Yellow Rose, we're celebrating the 40-year anniversary of it, which is really wonderful. But I kind of had to stay out of it. And of course, Johnny's like a brother to me, and I just love him. He was always a gentleman, which is not what I can say about most men that I had to deal with in the business. And I make that very clear because we took a lot of hits, a lot of us women in those days. And Johnny is a wonderful, upstanding man. But he never even really knew the whole story of the Yellow Rose, and he got sort of railroaded with his record company, and he didn't understand that they were lying about it. A lot of really goofy things happened, but I think just when you're innocent about stuff and you're doing things because you love it, that the good Lord provides for you and protects you. And that's kind of what happened with the Yellow Rose, because Michael called me and he said, I want you to sing the theme song to this new TV show called The Yellow Rose. And he said, I'd like you to be Sybil Shepherd's sister and be a recurring role and be on the bus and come in. And I really didn't want to do anything regarding acting. I was not one of these people who said, okay, I'll do anything for fame, and then once I'm famous, I can do whatever I want, or never like that. I always wanted to be true to what it was that I believe God wanted me to do, and that was to be a singer and to be a voice. So I said, I'd love to sing the theme song, but I really don't want to do the other thing. And he said, well, we need to do it as a duet, and who would you suggest? And at that time, I was working with a guitarist named Tom Bresch, and I did a lot of concerts with him, but he was doing a Rich Little special. So I said, well, what about Johnny Lee? So Johnny was kind of even my second choice. And so my manager called Johnny's management and everything, and they told him about it, and they said, well, meet us in Nashville, and we'll cut it. Well, when we got there, the original writer of the song, what's his name? It'll come to me, but I forgot right now. He had written these really corny lyrics, and Jimmy Bowen, Johnny's producer, they said, Warner Brothers said, because he was on Warner Brothers, I was on Capitol EMI, they'd only do the song if it came out on Warner Brothers. So that was, everything started to go downhill from then. So when I got there, Jimmy Bowen said, this song is corny, we're not going to cut it. So when they went out to lunch, I took the song and I was sweating, rewriting, because I needed to have a record out because I was in the middle of all this turmoil with the label. And so I wrote my soul out on that song, rewrote the whole thing, just kept some of it. And when it came back, I said, Mr. Bowen, can you look at these lyrics? Would you accept these? And he looked at him, he said, yeah. He said, this is great. So I said to Johnny, who just came back from lunch, I said, you wrote it too with me, Johnny. I said, you'd be a writer on it. And I wanted to do that to show good faith because I needed friends in Nashville. I was trying to be friends with people, but it wasn't very easy. The women were not real friendly. There's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of competition and all that. And I really was out of my element with it, to be honest with you. But I was trying to just make friends with everybody. So we did that. Then we recorded it. And then Warner Brothers said that it was going to be the A side. My management had worked it out with them. And I needed a follow-up song really, really badly. And so I believed that that's what they were going to do. But at the last minute, I had called to ask a question about something. And they said, oh, no, it's not Yellow Rose. It's Say When backed with the Yellow Rose. So they didn't even tell us the truth. But what they didn't know is I was on the phones. I have a lot of friends in radio. Many of them now have passed, God rest their soul, or they've left, the business. But I called all of my friends, hundreds of calls, telling everybody that the record was coming, and it was from, the theme of the TV show. And so when that record went out and it was Say When, nobody played Say When. They all flipped it. It was a B-side. That was the day when you had an A-side and a B-side. Remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you do. So they all played the Yellow Rose, and then everybody was mad. They were all going, what in the world is going on? His record was Say When. Even Johnny was mad at me when we first performed it. He was saying, my record was Say When. And I said, but Johnny, this is the biggest record you've had since Looking for Love. It came on at 50 and was just flying up the charts. So that's kind of what happened. And then I was never looked at as the writer. They never had, it was the way they wanted the contract was Johnny Lee with Lane Brody, and they had my name as Lane Brady. And then on Cashbox, they didn't even have my name on there. I called the Cashbox and I said, have you ever noticed that there's two people on the song, Yellow Rose? And the guy said, oh, yeah, great record. I said, well, I'm the other one. Can you put my name on there? And
Wow.
that's the kind of stuff I had to deal with. Then we did TV shows, and they'd have Johnny on talking, and I'd be in the back, with the grips and everything, and watching the Miss Americas come on. My mom always wanted me to go into beauty pageants and stuff, and I said no, absolutely no way I would ever do anything like that. I said, well, if I had been a beauty queen, I'd be on here, but instead I only wrote this #1 song and sang it. But I'm in the back here, waiting to be brought out to sing it with Johnny. It was really, it wasn't really fun.
I bet.
I'm
Yeah,
glad we had
no,
#1
it
record.
sounds so
But
frustrating, and just it sounds like you had to scratch and claw for anything you could. That just
oh,
sounds like a frustrating ordeal.
and I hate it, but this is the time of my life when I can tell the truth to people of what happened, because everybody wanted to know what happened to Lane Brody. And when I was nominated for the top new female vocalist, hey, grip yourselves for this one, guys. The head of the academy at the time attacked me, and he said, I can hurt you or help you. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I ran out. I was mortified. And I was the only one that had a #1 record and a record flying up the charts and pop charts, and didn't win it. And it was mine. Everybody knew that it was mine. I was like slated, and that's what I needed, for people to put the name with the song, that identification kind of thing. And Gus Hardin won. She apologized to me, God rest her soul. I think she had a record called I Need a Wife. And Gus, she said, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, it's okay. And I congratulated her and everything. But there was, oh my gosh, when I got back, there was, before cell phones and everything, I had just telegrams, saying Lane Brody got robbed, and they had Lane Brody at all the different radio stations, Lane Brody Day and everything for me. It was really sweet. But I couldn't tell them what happened. And that's how political these things were, and how twisted these things were. So, yeah, I mean, I finally had to say, Lord, I don't want to be in this. This is not where I belong. I want to use my gifts for something greater. And that's when I started to do USO tours, and I said, I'm going to be an mercenary artist, and I'm going to sing for whoever needs me to sing. So I've hundreds of charities that I've performed for, from cancer and St. Jude's and cerebral palsy, all of them. And that's the choice I made, and to just not be involved, because I was pretty much blackballed anyway. Nobody would get near me, because I was called difficult, and that's what they called us, the women that fought off all that stuff. And so, so it goes. And then the Me Too movement happened, and a lot of things have changed, but it's still hard for me to watch, because I see what's on television now, and I think about the kind of role model I want to be for children in the future, and they penalized us. And I'm not the only one. Those of us that had the ethics and the morals and the integrity and all of those things, and I was always a lady and always trying to make sure that I put my best foot forward. They chose these other ones, and now when you see it on television, it's like I can't even look at it. It makes me want to cry. I say, do you have to do that? Why can't you just be who you are and sing and perform?
Wow.
And I know you've noticed it. Everybody's noticed it. It's really changed. It's about shock value, and now they sign artists. They don't even really have to be that great a singer. They can tune them up, and they can do whatever they want with them, and they'll get their time. So it's a different day, and God bless everybody. I don't judge anybody for the choices they make, but I don't think that it's right that one's freedoms should be taken away because they don't follow a certain, kind of a power order that's in place.
Lane, one question I have for you is, what was it like knowing that your music touched people and that you had fans, and did you hear from your fans, and what was that part like?
Oh, that's the best part. I'm glad you asked that, because people that started as fans became family to me. And I was at some of their deathbeds. Wrote them when they were suffering, and just became just so. It started with music, but it became so much greater than that. And we spent so much time keeping in touch with each other, and they would come in for fanfare in those days. Oh, fanfare was so much fun before it turned into this corporate CMA festival and all about money. who's got the more, visibility in the 80s, which you proclaim were so great, and they really were with that regard. We had the ability to be closer to the people. We weren't so separate like it is now. And we didn't worry about anything. We were hugging the fans. They were at our booths and everybody coming in. There was no metal detectors. There wasn't anything like that. And it was a beautiful time. And then we would just leave the tip for the servers and just, just share our lives and our life experiences, the joys and the sorrows, and pray for each other. And so that's the greatest part. And I still hear from many people, and some are, like I said, are passing on, and just staying close to those that became like family to me. And then new fans now are coming out, and unfortunately don't have the closeness that I had with the early ones, but lots of young people that are writing and saying they're finding my music. And I know that's what they're doing with a lot of artists' music. They're digging into their folks or grandparents' music collections and stuff, and finding things and writing. It's great when I get something from a 16-year-old, that says, "Oh, I heard these songs. I just love this song." And that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So, that's really exciting.
That's the legacy. Yeah, the legacy lives on. That's what keeps me going, to know that I did what the good Lord wanted me to do, because it's there and it's on record, and I'm part of the tapestry. No matter how much I had to suffer through so much of what went on, the struggle was worth it, because I did manage to leave, what I think what people remember. And the Yellow Rose is as big as anybody's record out there. It's still, my husband tells me all the time, do you realize how many millions and millions of people continue to watch that video and, love the song and make comments? I mean, what more can you ask for? If you have one or two of those, that's incredible. And to be remembered for those two songs, to me, is awesome. And then, of course, after, when I started to do the USO tours, I wrote all the unsung heroes, and I dedicated so much of my gift to our military, and especially Vietnam veterans who, were never thanked when they came home. So I wrote a song called "Thanks for What You Did" for them, and became very close for them, and worked for Operation Stand Down for many years, and memorials, and just to serve and bring that appreciation for them, for our veterans, because without them, we wouldn't be here. And I think more people need to remember that right now, what our veterans and our military have done for us, to have the freedoms to be who we are and to be as crazy as things are right now. So, thank our vets, and thank those that died for us to have the freedoms we have. And when we get hit like we're getting hit with these storms and various things, we need to be reminded life is temporal and it's short, and to be kind and appreciate each other for who we are. And that's what I try to do, just try and bring that love and that joy to people with my music.
And now the music that you record now, are you kind of able to do it a little bit more on your terms?
Oh, absolutely. And my husband, Eddie was a concert pianist first. So when he plays the keyboard, he can play any instrument he wants. It can be the guitar, it can be violins. So we don't have to use a full band. We can do it right here in our house. And we've made many beautiful records, and the folks can find them out there, like I said, on Rhapsody and Spotify. And we release them that way, and on CD Baby. And the fans are just loving these songs. And what I'm finding is they're really leaning towards the positive songs I write. Like I See Sunshine, it's a really fun, upbeat song. And then All Shall Be Well, Does I Pray for Us, Believing That All Shall Be Well. They want to hear that kind of music. And I don't hear a lot of that in country, that like we used to hear, more of that kind of soulful story songs that made you feel, that kind of touched the condition that you were in at the time, what's going on in society. Now it's a lot of fun songs, and that's great, but I still go for the songs that kind of come from keeping your ear to the pavement and feeling what people must be feeling right now with what's going on in the world. And so it's great to see that those are getting a lot of play on these options, because, major radio it's a whole different ball game, what goes on there. And that's changed a lot too over the years. So
absolutely.
big difference. Eddie would tell you that too, as someone that played on thousands of records and so many hit records in order to be inducted as he was into the Hall of Fame. But he's noticed lots of changes, and now he enjoys being on the Opry. He plays for the Grand Ole Opry, which is
really
wonderful. He loves it. Yeah. He goes a week on, a week off, and then he has an alternate that was Barry Beckett, who's one of my favorite producers that I worked with. And we didn't talk much about the producers. Barry Beckett was just fabulous. Muscle Shoals. His son loved Eddie, so Eddie kind of took him under his wing, and then he brought him onto the Opry and gave him 1 week on, and then Eddie would take 1 week on so that he could make a good living for his family. And that's kind of people that Eddie and I try to be. We just try to help everybody we can, people and animals.
There's one other song I wanted to bring up too. Also, so in 1985, you came out with your self-titled album, and the song I wanted to talk about was "He Burns Me Up." It was number 29 hits on the top 40 country chart, and what a fun song!
Yeah, it was. It was not really the direction that I wanted to go in, but that things had deteriorated so badly, and even regarding people that I had to be involved with to have that album, which I don't know if it really came out or not. I really don't know. At that point, radio stations were telling me my records, to be honest with you. So Baby's Eyes was the one that really sealed the deal for me in terms of I thought that'd be it for me in terms, because you needed to have a record really to keep working, but through the grace of God, the fans loved me in concert so much I did continue to be able to do concerts all over the world. So I'm grateful for that. But what happened with He Burns Me Up was it should have gone a lot higher, but from what I was told, because of another problem of being sexually harassed during that time, there was more problems with that, and it did a certain amount because radio was very loyal to me, and a lot of them told me, listen, the fans love this record, I'm going to play it. And they did. I got tons of comments on it, and I thought it was a lot of fun, like you said. But Baby's Eyes was the one that I really was hoping would kind of send me, past all of I couldn't get over that hump, you know what I mean, to be a big enough name where it mattered that I was around, Yeah. And when they put that one out, they immediately were tearing it down. But again, the fans were calling me up and saying, I heard this song. Oh my gosh, it's my favorite song, Baby's Eyes. But that was written by, I can't even remember now, to be honest with you. He Burns Me Up. But I did it on Ralph Emery's show back in the day. Remember, he had that show, Nashville Now.
Yep.
I performed it on there, wore a red dress. And it was a cool, fun song. I wish I had done better and we could have gotten Baby's Eyes out to everybody. But anybody that can Google Baby's Eyes, if you love your children and you look in your baby's eyes and see that light, I think you'll enjoy that song too. It's off that project. And I did work with Chips Moman too. I did a whole album with Chips Moman they never released.
We'll tell you what, we will play both. We will play both He Burns Me Up and Baby's Eyes here on the show. And then
wonderful.
Yeah, after we play both those songs.
Because I wrote Baby's Eyes. I wrote Baby's Eyes I wrote, but I didn't write the other one.
Oh, you did write. You wrote Baby's Eyes. That's awesome.
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Well, we will hear both of them, and then we'll wrap things up here with Lane Brody here on the 80s at 8. We're back here on the 80s at 8, and that was from the 1985 self-titled album from Lane Brody, He Burns Me Up and Baby's Eyes here on the 80s at 8. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lane. It's been great to hear from you. And
pleasure.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about the organization, Walden's Puddle. Tell me a little bit about what you do and your love of animals.
Yes, well, when I stepped out of the whole situation, or they kind of forced me out, I just prayed a lot, so Lord, what take me where you want me to go. And then it turned into a lot of, as I said, a lot of charitable work. So I would use my gift and do concerts wherever I was needed to raise money. And that kept going on for a lot of years, and I kept doing shows. And then this opportunity came up because I was doing concerts for the organization with Vince Gill and a lot of my peers that were love that love to do charitable concerts. I'd put it that way, and they would come out and sing with me to make money. But then a terrible thing happened to the organization, and there was somebody that was in there cheating them of money, and so they contacted me because I was on the board, and I said I would step up, and I stepped up and had to kind of clean everything up and bring this organization back. And what's beautiful about it is that it's a nonprofit corporation, and it's called Wildlife Center of Greater Nashville. In about 4,000 injured and orphaned animals a year, all wild, and rescuing of dogs and cats and domestic. But this is my professional work. I don't receive any money. I do it for free. I try to do everything I can for free. It's my philanthropic work and serve as the CEO. And it's a wonderful place. And we brought it back from nothing to being a wonderful organization that's really thriving. It's about a $500,000 a year corporation. We have professional staff working for us, and then the board does jobs that would normally be paid. It's structured very differently, but very much for the good of our community. And it's changed a lot of people's opinions of who I am, or if they never really knew who I was or heard bad things about me because of the slander and the blackballing. It was good for them to see that my heart is in it as a Christian person trying to the community and in a good way, in a helpful way. And it's very beloved now, this organization, by everybody. And a lot of country artists support us. And we just continue to bring in, take in the animals that need us and release them back to the wild. There's nothing like it. It's pretty amazing. So, yeah. So I continue to record and perform when I'm needed at specific things, memorials and things like that, and take care of my husband and my family and my adopted family, and glorify God in all things, which I always did. Never took a stage without saying, let me be the vessel. So all glory to God for everything.
Yeah, and Lane, if anybody wants to learn more about you, do you you have a website, correct?
I have a website, yes, and I do have a fan page on Facebook. I've got two, so they can put a request in there. I have an email. I don't mind giving you that email. It's Lane, Lane, at lanebrody.com, Lane at lanebrody.com, and I try to answer everybody and just connect and support. We just need to support each other. So God bless you all, and thank you for listening and caring about my story, my journey.
And there was one last question I had for you when you were talking about the Yellow Rose. And you were talking about the impact it had on people, and my question for you is, how special is it that it's your words, that you have a song, but not only did you sing it, but you also, it was your voice and your words, and to have people know that song so well with something that you wrote?
Yeah, that is really neat. It's hard to explain because it's such a connection that people connect to something that you felt. But I believe I'm just the vessel when I write anything at all. And like I say, Unsung Heroes, it became a huge song for me, even though it wasn't a radio hit, and it still is. It's finding its way to everybody that needs that song, and that came from God. I just got out of the way, and a lot of my music has come from God that you can Google and see. Sweet Sanctuary and White Shadows, that Alison Krauss sang backup for me on, support for me on. That's the essence of who I am as an artist. So when people accept that or hear that, it moves them. That's kind of like the best of it all. So, and also to be able to perform it. But that's who I will always be, a singer-songwriter. That's how God made me. So pick up the guitar and, what do you want me to write, Lord? Bam. We just lost, it reminds me of Christopherson. We just lost Christopherson. He was a sweetheart. And God rest his soul. What a great songwriter.
Yeah.
And talent.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. And I want to say, and it is just heartbreaking hearing your story, Lane, but thank you so much for pushing through and recording music that means so much to people, and just thank you for continuing to push through, because your songs did definitely make a difference, and you just talking about your relationship with the fans, that it's clear that your voice and your words made a difference.
Thank you so much. That just means everything to me. Thank you. God bless you.